Hello and welcome to the Brothers of Dynasty podcast live stream edition. I'm your host, Josh Christensen, joined as always by my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Jay, welcome to Super Bowl week and welcome to us not talking about the Super Bowl that much. Jay, how you doing? What are you drinking today?
Super Bowl week. What do you got? Over or under? You got prop bets. We got
I got yellow Gatorade, Jay. Yellow Gatorade.
Yellow. You got over under on the national anthem.
I got over. That over under sent very low.
I agree.
That's the important game that was the Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl, yeah.
I did watch the Pro Bowl.
Mac Jones running, dancing.
Yeah, running, dancing, doing the gritty, doing his thing. Oh well. Anyways, what are you drinking? What are you drinking?
In celebration, I'm not drinking celebration tonight, but I'm drinking High Lie, which I had a couple weeks ago because I still have some. So
in celebration, I'm drinking High Lie of a celebration. Andrew, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm still not drinking anything. This pattern's going on, and I probably should have prompted a different question because I'm out of ideas to deflect that question.
Josh is not going to stop asking.
Yeah, it'd be funny if 6 months later it's still just the same question. What do you drink?
You can drink something though, like I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I've got
my water bottle. Yeah, you've seen the hydro flask. No, but I will be breaking this sobriety streak for the Super Bowl this weekend. I don't know what I'll be drinking. Maybe we can have some of those. What is that? Whiskey sours. I'll bring over the bullet bourbon. You bring the raw eggs.
And that's all we need. That's all we need for a whiskey sour.
Done and done. What are you drinking, Josh?
Oh, I'm drinking some more Truly, brought to you by Julian Edelman. Back to you, Jerry.
He's good. He's
just hanging out.
Good in those commercials.
Yeah.
It's just, I like it. I'm into it, Julian Edelman. That's a good sponsorship deal. Gonna make that seltzer money. Anyways, on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing a Dynasty Startup Mock Draft we did, Superflex Tight End Premium, with picks this year. It was really interesting. Thanks to everyone who participated. We'll be going through team by team. We're not going to go over the board analyzing because there's only so many hours in the day, but we will be looking at what we thought draft strategy was or how that worked out and / what we think the team could be doing in their first year and for what they should be doing, whether they should be tanking, playing for the future, that sort of thing. And then looking at some value picks and also going to be roasting some fools by picking their worst pick of the draft, including our own. So it's equal opportunity. But first, we are going to be talking about some news items, namely some coaching hires. But before we do that, I should mention that the Brothers of Dynasty are part of the Fantasy Football Collective network of podcasts. You can find the Fantasy Football Collective at FF_collective on Twitter for great content and other great podcasts like the Fantasy Nightcap, the Fantasy Boardroom, and Collective Knowledge. So let's move on to some of these coaching hires. And there were, I think every position has been filled at this point. I think all 9. Minus
if the Texans were filled, then yes, they were all filled.
Texans were filled by Lovie Smith. I think the one that technically the what was it, the Vikings job, which is going to be Kevin O'Connell, but he is playing in the he's offensive coordinator for the Rams, so they can't technically hire him, but it will be Kevin O'Connell. But the ones this week that we didn't get to last week were Lovie Smith hired by the Texans, Mike McDaniel hired by the Dolphins, Dennis Allen hired by the Saints, and Doug Peterson hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, Lovie Smith and Dennis Allen were promotions from within. Both were defensive coordinators for those respective teams, which makes you think, particularly with Lovie Smith, why didn't they just keep David Culley? But I don't think that really matters. There's not a ton of fantasy implications there. I think Lovie Smith, however, is a professional coach, which is better than Josh McCown, who was a finalist for that job as well.
That.
How
did you do the same thing as me? I was
stupid.
like, I googled like, has he coached a team before? I'm like, he was just playing. It was like, no, he was on their practice squad and got cut. I was like, what are we doing? We're
Never. And they wanted to hire him. It honestly, like, I was so infuriated because if the Texans had hired Josh McCown, literally should be like evidence piece number 1A next to the Bill Belichick butt dial text or whatever happened in Brian Flores' case. Just have to point to the judge and be like, this guy, I rest my case. The Texans hired Josh McCown over me. Jesus Christ. And that's not to say Josh McCown can't eventually be a good quarterback, but like, be a QB coach somewhere. You know what he's qualified to do? Probably be a QB coach. That I would say
maybe
cool.
Start there. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Work
your way up through the ranks a little bit. Yeah, that'd be
like, no, he's just gonna skip all the way to the top.
If they did make that hard, couldn't they just officially list them as a failed organization?
Just make him GM too. Coach GM. Give him all the power.
Just do that. VP of player personnel.
Like shares in the team, be like a minority owner or whatever. Yeah, just give him it all.
And let him be a player coach. He can be third string QB as well.
Why not? Yeah, bring in all his brothers too. All the McCowns. Bring them all in.
Why not?
Luke, Jackson.
Yes,
Chase,
Mahomes,
TJ, JJ,
Jackson, Mahomes,
McCown. I was just naming other brothers from different.
They're all great.
Man,
we get Cooper McCown.
Yes. Yeah, there we go. Derek. Anyways, of these hires, I think the two that I think are most interesting from a fantasy standpoint are probably Doug Peterson and Mike McDaniel, both offensive-minded coaches from other systems. Mike McDaniel, obviously, from that Kyle Shanahan tree, going over there working with Tua and Jalen Waddle and whoever else they bring into that team, hopefully a running back. So for initial reactions, we'll make this quick so we can get on to our mock draft to particularly these two coaching hires. And Andrew, I'll start with you.
I mean, Doug Peterson feels like a very solid hire. He was the coach of Super Bowl winning Philadelphia team, so he obviously can kind of like work in general over all facets of the game. But I also really like the McDaniel hire. That seems like the sort of like young, like up and coming coach, like who's kind of been like successful working his way through. So he's worked on that Niners team, and then I think I was reading up that he also kind of served in on the Redskins, building up like an early RG3. So he's worked with young quarterbacks. We'll see what he can do with Tua. I think it's interesting, and I'll look forward to seeing what he does there.
Oh, other side note, bit of news there. The Washington football team, formerly the Redskins, too.
Did I say Redskins? Yeah,
you did say Redskins.
They do actually have another new name, so yeah,
it's the Commanders, the Washington Commanders, which I think any name that people picked, the people were going to hate on it. I think it's fine. I think it's a perfectly fine name. I think
it does sound kind of like a USFL team name, but
a little bit.
I'll get used to it.
We're all going to get used to it. It's going to be fine.
I think it's just tough because we just gotten used to sort of like the meta-ness of the Washington football name. And almost like, I think a lot of people have come around to really liking that, and now they're changing it again. So it's just...
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we've gotten used to stupider names, like the New Orleans Pelicans.
I'm just not a fan of birds in general.
The Buccaneers? The Buccaneers is an objectively stupid nickname for a team. Like,
it's like a fancy pirate. You don't like...
It's like a pirate
that gets above their station. I'm a Buccaneer. No, you're a pirate.
You're a
garbage pirate.
It wasn't called Buccaneers of the Caribbean. It was called
Pirates of the Caribbean. Come on.
Dude, it was a fucking blockbuster.
Good enough for Jack.
It's good enough for Jack Sparrow, and it's good enough for you, Tampa.
Gary Bruckheimer, or who produced that?
I don't know. Somewhere in there. There's plenty of stupid names in the NFL. I think Commanders is going to fit right in, and it's going to be totally fine.
The Commanders win the Super Bowl. Can you hear that? No, I can't.
Yes.
I just heard you say it.
Well, yeah, I can.
We're going to hear that for a while.
I can hear it because I have a strong imagination and I'm a right brain thinker. Last, Jay, any more thoughts on these hires?
A lot of thoughts on these side. No, I really like Peterson. That was one that I didn't even think of, but it was really a perfect fit there. You want to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence here too. That is a prime candidate of a coach that was out there that could do that. And then I like McDaniel for that running game. It'll be interesting because I don't think the running back or running backs that are going to contribute there in Miami are necessarily on the team right now. So those will be interesting fantasy commodities next year. However that shakes out, they draft a guy. Really, no matter what round, I'll be interested in the running backs that end up there.
Yeah, well, we'll get more into this down the road in the season as we head to the draft, but I think ends up being like 3 or 4 like premier spots this offseason for running backs to land, especially for some of these draft guys like Isaiah Spiller or Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker. As we're looking there, Miami's got to be top of the list for me right now because there's a clear need. It seems a lot like Pittsburgh was last year, where there's no barrier to touches on a team like that. And then I think probably Atlanta's the other one that feels the most attractive. Maybe the Seahawks as well. But we'll get into that more later. Yeah, I echo what you both said with these hires. I do like those offensive-minded coaches for both of these teams. Obviously, with McDaniel, he's never done it before as a head coach, so sometimes these guys don't make the leap quite as well. So until you see him do it, you kind of have to like be a little cautiously optimistic. But scheme-wise, this scheme has been that this kind of Shanahan offense has been really friendly to a lot of people. And now I think we can all officially say the next Debo is Jalen Waddle.
Yes. That's how it works.
There is no next Debo. We're not going to get into that. And last quick note on Doug Peterson. Really, I think this is going a long way into making my Trevor Lawrence top 12 fantasy finish next year.
You're halfway there.
Halfway there.
Balls in your
I'm
court,
halfway
Trev.
there. Oh, living out of prayer. I actually do think that they can get a playmaker or two with into that team, and yeah, they've got a lot of capital and draft space, and I think it should be a much better situation for that offense at the very least next year. And maybe they get Vic Fangio to be their defensive coordinator, which would also be pretty fantastic for them. Let's move on to our mock draft, by the way, which we're actually going to share our screen and bring that up for everybody. Jay, you want to go ahead and do that?
I'm going to do that. We'll see if it didn't flip out. Nice.
Yeah, it went pretty
in
well.
all its glory.
We're gonna go through team by team. So if you're watching this on a phone and the screen's too tiny, don't worry too much about it. We will go through most of the picks at least quickly as we go through our team. We're actually gonna start with our own team, starting with me. I had the 3rd pick in this 12-team Superflex tight end premium mock draft. And just to go through, I'll go through probably the top 10 or 12 picks and maybe give some of the later picks down as I talk about this. But started off with Josh Allen at number 3, went Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook coming back around on the turn in my 2nd and 3rd, went Justin Fields in the 4th round. Then I went heavy on wide receivers, going Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, and then DJ Chark after I took my tight end Noah Fant in the 10th. And then a few other picks down the road. Marcus Mariota for a quarterback. I was taking a guy who I thought quarterbacks got nasty real quick in this draft, as they do in most Superflex drafts. So I thought in the 17th round, Marcus Mariota, maybe he gets a job this year, was pretty decent value. And this Kyle Trask in the 20th is looking a lot better now. Spoiler alert, we did this.
Genius.
We did this before Tom Brady had retired. So take the Brady and the Trask pick with a grain of salt, and then tried to throw some darts at some tight ends down here as well. So going through my draft, I'll be curious to get your takes on this, Jay and Andrew. But my strategy going in was to draft a win now team. I did not take I took one draft pick with my very last pick with the 309. I underweighted age significantly. And I think I stuck to that pretty well. Although if I'm honest, like sometimes the allure of those young players really sneaks in when you take that strategy. So when I went with like Justin Fields in particular, I still think Justin Fields could be a win now piece. But if like I was going to take the safe win now piece, I probably would have taken Matt Stafford there. But I really like Justin Fields. And even though this is a mock, I just wanted a share of him because I don't have it anywhere else. So in terms of sticking to my process with this is probably my least effective effective pick. In terms of what I thought was my best value, Hunter Renfrow in the 9th round. He's still not going high, and he was a top 15 wide receiver this past year. I love that value.
I
for
was
my
surprised
team.
you took Thomas over him. I'm surprised you didn't go the round before to take him kind of on that wrapper. They're pretty close.
They are pretty close. I felt like he would still be there. Honestly, I wasn't even terribly worried with 4 more picks that he wasn't going to go. And Thomas was a big swing type pick. With Hunter,
with if your theme is win now, like Thomas is a win now, or he's probably like not useful anymore, and in terms of his value. So he fit your team. And then Renfrow, who ends up being your 5th wide receiver, that was nice run that you had because you waited 4 rounds. So you really, your wide receiver core looks good, even though you waited, which shows kind of the depth of wide receiver that you can get in, up and through the 9th round.
Yeah, that definitely was there. And even like DJ Chark being there in the 11th, I think is like an upside guy who could at least be flexible for you next year. If he happens to be the top receiver in Jacksonville or whatever happens with him, certainly a talented guy who's done it before. If I had to think, my probably least favorite pick here, honestly, I think Chris Carson's going to end up being a wasted pick. I don't know how much he does after this, and there were still some guys. It's not a bad value, but there were some guys that it could have gone with. Like, I don't think Kenny Golladay would have been a bad pick there. Honestly, even like Jamal Williams at running back, who went a little after him, might have been a better pick, or waiting a round or 2 and taking guys like Deonta Foreman and Ernest Johnson's, guys we've talked about before, who may be able to carve out a role. I think there might be a possibility that Chris Carson's done. But 15th round's not going to kill you. But that's the pick I came out of just being kind of like, why did I take Chris Carson there? It feels like a waste of a pick.
Yeah, Chris Carson he's another one, not a little bit less than Thomas, but he's one who's probably, if he's going to contribute for you, is probably going to be next year, or he's probably not long for, I don't know, playing for a team. Yeah, his best case scenario is he stays on Seattle. He gets to start there for part of next season, and you could use him on your team.
Yeah, that feels like best case scenario. Andrew, let's move to your team. Take us through what you did.
Yeah, if we can scroll back up, I picked at spot 4 there and went Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, J.K. Dobbins. 5th round went with Stafford, then Aaron Jones, Tom Brady. Took my first pick, the 109, in the 9th round or 8th round. I can't really see it. Then Gesicki, the 112. Grabbed Rashad Penny next. Then Adam Thielen, Jared Goff, Corey Davis, Josh Palmer, Tyler Higbee next to add a 2nd tight end. Grabbed my boy Trey Sermon. Steal of the draft.
Had to grab Trey Sermon.
At a certain point, he was just hanging out there. Jalen Reagor, Nyheim Hines, J.D. McKissick, kind of loading up on some real back-end lottery ticket running backs. Amari Rodgers, Mike Davis, and then I think I grabbed the 310 there at the end. So almost the opposite of the way Josh went with things. I started out loading up on wide receivers, and I think normally in a live draft, I would be drafting the way Josh did. I'd like to get those big, like, the top end quarterbacks in a super flex and the top end running backs if I can. Those are going to be usually what I focus on. But I took this sort of as an exercise to see what I could build when I go really wide receiver heavy up the top. So that's why I went back to back on that, grabbing the trio of Jefferson, Hill, and Metcalf. And subsequently feel really good about that, because after waiting until round 4 to take a different position, I was kind of able to still piece together what I thought was a top-end running back core with J.K. Dobbins and Aaron Jones, and also went with some of the more veteran quarterbacks with Matt Stafford, Tom Brady. This was before the Tom Brady retiring. This seemed like a pretty good catch, and the makings of like a compete now team. Now it looks like my team's more Matt Stafford, Jared Goff. So not so great. In retrospectively, the Brady pick, maybe the lesser pick. Like maybe I should have tried to go a little younger and grab something else to continue to build that running back core, because there was definitely some good running backs around that time. You still had the Fournettes, Zeke Elliott, and even Damian Harris if you wanted a more conservative running back there to fill the third running back spot. But that's the way it played out, and being able to grab in those mid-rounds Mike Gesicki to fill in that tight end spot, I feel like I was able to accomplish getting a pretty solid lineup and then rounding it out with Rashad Penny. And I still got the 109 and 112 in there to give me some draft capital that I could really fill out that lineup and start adding to depth. So that's probably the best thing that I got out of this, was a pretty well-rounded lineup. I do think it's, like I said, a year one competitive team, but I don't know that it's the strongest team on paper. So it's sort of in a middle ground. I don't know what you guys think. It feels versatile, but I don't know if it's the best team on paper.
Yeah, the Brady one, it's hard. If you envision a different quarterback,
it's hard to think outside of that now.
So you'd probably put a different one, because you could rerun it. It's going to be a different quarterback in that spot. I really like the receivers up top. That plays into, we'll get to my team in a second, but that plays into more how I usually go. I want some wide receivers up top, and I went a little bit of a different path with my team in this one. So I really like that in terms of getting that trio. I mean, that's really solid there, and it gives you some trade bait anyways, just because those guys are all on the younger side in terms of, you don't have Adam Thielen or DeAndre Hopkins or something like that, just where they're around 30, where it's going to be a little bit harder to move those guys if you need to make a move, to a different position. And you still are able to get value running backs like Dobbins, which was the end of kind of a tier.
Dobbins was my favorite pick in that particular.
Yeah, for sure.
That's probably my favorite pick too, just because I feel like for him to still be around, it's nice being able to get that guy that, he was out last year, but we still think very highly of his ability and know that he's kind of got that running back one upside. So to kind of get that deal on him in a startup now is huge. So you still have that youth there.
4'9" too. So he was, really, that's a guy. I feel like the running backs get to a certain point where any of them are kind of from 5 to like 14. I feel like there is a lot of they're close, honestly, closer than you'd think.
Yeah.
Because they all have question marks. They're either coming off injuries, disappointing performances. Some guys perform better, but their talent's probably worse. The ones that are more talented maybe haven't performed lately. There's just a lot there to kind of unpack, and you kind of can, all the way through Dobbins and Akers on this board, you can really move those guys around.
Yeah, I agree. Jay, let's move to your team here. So take us through your team and what your strategy was.
So for my team, we'll recap some of the picks here. I started off first round at pick 7, so I was in the 1-7, and I picked Lamar Jackson, quarterback for Superflex there. Then I picked Christian McCaffrey at the 2-6, and then Mark Andrews in tight end premium league. I picked him at 3-7 as the second tight end off the board. And then I had a choice in the fourth, and my guy, who I can't quit, Saquon Barkley, is sitting there, so I went with that risk there in the fourth round. And then I took another kind of risky guy in Deshaun Watson in the fifth. So looking for another quarterback there, I paired him with Jackson there. And then I don't have a wide receiver at this point, so I stack up some wide receivers here and some picks. It's pretty much my next 6 picks in a row. The receivers I got were Evans in the 6th, Ayuk in the 8th, Mike Williams in the 9th, Rondale Moore in the 10th, and Courtland Sutton in the 11th. And I packaged that with picks in there, which were the 105. So I got a top 5 pick, and then also the 2-4 in the 12th round. Down the second half of the draft, I'll just go through these real fast. Darrell Henderson and Kenny Gainwell were 2 running backs I picked in the back half here. And I picked some wide receivers who I don't like, but they fell so far in this draft that I was forced to take them, essentially. And Kenny Galladay in the 15th, and then Will Fuller in the 18th round, which honestly might be my best pick, honestly, because that was the crazy late for.
What about that real late Zay Jones pick?
Actually, Zay Jones.
I mean, with his sort of a late season onset, that feels like a value bench receiver pick.
Yeah, I liked my late wide receiver picks almost better than some of the early ones, who I feel like were some of my weaker picks, but and then I really went kind of tight end flyers at the end because I got a top end tight end. So I just waited, and you figure you're going to ride Andrews in your team. So you don't need to go grab another guy necessarily, depending on how you want to comprise your team. So I took some upside guys in Njoku, Everett, Gerald Everett, and then Hunter Long in the last round. So those were my guys there. Yeah, so that was my team, and just different because my strategy normally coming in is probably to go wide receiver and quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I went Lamar up front there, and I didn't really like how the 7 pick really shook out. I feel like I might have tried to trade around. I like Lamar, and clearly I picked him over the other quarterbacks that went after, and Murray, Burrow, and Prescott, but I don't really mind getting those guys. So I almost would have liked to shift back.
Yeah.
Picked up some capital in some other rounds. Because I ended up getting stuck in some spots where I was in the middle of weird parts of tiers for me, where I was picking guys just in different ways that I would have picked them.
And that's a good thing to note too, that for this being a mock, there was no trading. So these spots where you don't like what you had, where maybe normally you'd trade back or try and trade up, that wasn't an option. So we all took what we got at the spot.
Yeah, and it's interesting now that I have paired Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley in this draft, and no Andrew in the chat. I will not quit Saquon Barkley because he can be good this year. This is very much on the table. I like the steps in the right direction there on that team with the new coach. So I think we're gonna be talking about him differently next year. And McCaffrey at 2.6, he's an interesting guy because he fell sort of in this, and I just felt compelled to take him at that point. A guy that if these guys hit, I mean, no one has higher trade value when these guys are going than these guys. Part of it's name value and perception. I know that people have soured more on Barkley lately, but if you have a good first half of the season with those guys, regardless of where your team's at, you would think that they're competing, but they're great trade values. So it's more kind of locking into some guys that just fell in spots where I felt like I had to take them. And I felt fortunate in this draft to get 2 quarterbacks up front, which is usually what I'm trying to do. I'm trying not to fall out of whatever my tier of quarterbacks are from my top 2 in Superflex. And here getting Watson, also had the choice of Rodgers there, but I liked getting the younger guy. It gets dicey after that, where you're getting some guys where their job could be in jeopardy in a couple of years. I know Watson is a risk. Feel like he's going to play. So I liked getting him on my team there. Worst pick, though, I feel like Rondale Moore and Mike Williams are the ones I feel worse about. Some of the wide receivers in the middle there. I feel like moving around there, I could have maybe locked in some of the guys I preferred. Guys like Rashad Bateman's or even Hunter Renfrow, Darnell Mooney. There's guys around there that went, around my picks. So,
right.
Yeah. Those were probably the ones that I didn't feel good about.
Yeah, I think you've got kind of a high risk, high reward type team because, I mean, obviously the McCaffrey, the Barkley, the Watson, like we've talked about before. I mean, I still think Williams is very much a very odd player in a lot of ways, but like has been kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Sutton, who was dreadful this past season, but like
he fell in this one too, and it was just like, all right, let's take a swing,
Yeah.
The Williams one, I think about it, I just worry about where he ends up. It's just if he's tied to an offense that doesn't push the ball down the field as much, a quarterback with less of an arm. Those type of things worry me a little bit about him. But
yeah, absolutely. Let's move. Sorry, Andrew, make your point.
No, I was just gonna say, it's tough when you feel like there's that shakiness in the, even though you can't say you didn't get good value on some of them. But then even seeing Mike Evans up top after the Brady retirement, you're just like, I hope they get like a good quarterback in Tampa Bay, unless it is Trask. I don't know, but sort of that uncertainty all around, like is like a little unsettling when you have that and there's no one guy that you're like, well, I feel confident about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to our next team. So we will be going to not friend of the pod, father of the pod, Gary's corner here, Dynasty Pop-Up, pick 102 in the pick. So I'm going to be taking us through his team. So we have Patrick Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Austin Eckler, Travis Etienne, Terry McLaurin, Mac Jones. The kickers are picks, by the way, in case you haven't figured that one out. So his rookie picks, I'm actually just going to read out the rookie picks that he ended up with. They're the 104, the 206, the 301, and the 307 in this draft. That's 2022 rookie picks. We also have Claypool in here, Dalton Schultz, Kareem Hunt, Hunter Henry, Christian Kirk, Darrell Williams, Gardner Minshew, KJ Osborne, Gus Edwards, the Gus Bus, Julio Jones, way down. Weird to see Julio Jones this far in a draft.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy. Tim Patrick, Byron Pringle, and David Johnson at the end there. One of the D Johnsons. There's a lot of them. I had to look at the uniform. Real quick. I was like, that looks like Houston. So yeah, going through this draft, it's tough to get in someone's head for their strategy. I think Dad's probably in the chat here, so I don't know if he can post what he was going for here. I want to post this comment though too from Andrew. How dare you not actually draft kickers? What is this amateur hour?
It is kickers.
It is kickers. That's what we're doing.
Clearly, I love Zane Gonzalez. Is that
the strategy here? I think we're kind of going pick by pick, kind of a best player available is what it looks like. And I think it gets kind of dicey with the draft picks throughout here, because I think that kind of throws off what you expect the value to be. But the 104 is going to be a pretty premium pick there. If I had to guess what this team would be doing year one, I think it's kind of a wait and see approach. If I'm looking at this, I think you do have some good young pieces. ETN, McLaurin, Claypool. You got a lot of young pieces, a lot of draft picks here. I would be waiting to see like how your first 5 or 6 games go, and then if you're in a position where you go 2-4 in your first few games and you just aren't seeing your team, you have Devontae Adams, you have Austin Eckler, which should fetch a high price in there without sacrificing your future, because you're pretty stable at quarterback. If I had to pick a least favorite pick here, I don't love Mac Jones at 6'11". I would have rather had Tua there. I would have rather waited a round or two and taken Carr, Kirk Cousins also, just from a sake of production. It's not that I hate, like I get like the long-term stability with Mac Jones that you expect to have. I don't see a world where he's more than like QB 18. QB 17, QB 18. He may be like a solid guy, but there's not a lot of leg upside there. He hasn't really shown the down the field, push the ball down the field upside yet, and it doesn't really project to be like elite in that category of the game. So I probably would have waited and tried to roll the dice on another quarterback who I think has like a little bit of a higher upside there. It's just a little early for Mac Jones. for me there. In terms of my favorite value in this draft, Austin Eckler in the third round, I still think is highway robbery. I think there was a lot of good value with running backs in this draft because we only had 2 go in the first round. So, like, Jay, you got Barkley in the 4th. Nick Chubb went in the 4th. Dobbins,
There's
Akers
still a
in the
lot
4th.
of good ones. Like, I mean, you usually aren't going to have the choice of like Cam Akers, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and J.K. Dobbins in the 4th.
No.
But I don't know what. Yeah. But yeah, that's what happened here. So.
Yeah, so I mean, even like it's 302, it's early 3rd round, but he was the number 2 fantasy running back this past year. He's 26 years old, but his game should mature pretty well. He takes less hits. He's got a lot of PPR upside. And like I said, he's going to be an extremely valuable asset for compete teams this coming year. So he's either helping this team win now or he's fetching you a pretty hefty price in week 10.
On paper, this team looks like a win. Like it's built where you could win the first year. So you might want to, if you were actually drafted this team, you might want to even look to move those picks, move ETN guys that move maybe the more risky things for
if I was this team,
pieces before the season.
I would be shopping that 104 when you get closer to the draft just to see what you can get for it. Right, because you might be like, it should fetch you a pretty good price at that point. You might be able to look because I think this team's probably most thin at wide receiver. Like you've really got McLaurin, Adams, like even McLaurin depends on where it's solid. Yeah, that's not terrible, but I think you could definitely upgrade there. Like, could you take at the draft? Could you take something like the 104 and let's see where it went around? Could you turn that into something that went slightly above, maybe a slightly older guy? Could you turn that into a Calvin Ridley, a Mike Evans, something like that if you get close to the draft, or package that with a Claypool and try to get yourself I don't know, I'm speculating here at this point, but people get crazy close to the draft. So yeah, that's kind of where I see this team. Let's move on to the next in our list, which is Andrew going through Bill McNamara's team.
Yep, Bill's team, he was pick 101, and Superflex Draft kicks things off with Jonathan Taylor. So this one will go Taylor, Javonte Williams, Jalen Waddle, Trey Lance, DJ Moore, Michael Carter, Tua Tagovailoa, Zach Wilson, first pick off the board for him, the 110, Marquise Brown, Robert Woods, Melvin Gordon, Rob Gronkowski, Daniel Jones, Laviska Shenault, another pick off the board, the 211. Then goes Myles Gaskin, follows up pretty quickly with another pick, the 302. Goes Jonnu Smith, Robert Tonyan, 2 tight ends back-to-back there. Sterling Shepard, one more pick in, I believe, the 306. And then finishes things off with KJ Hamler. So this sort of follows a very similar theme to mine as far as approach, and I kind of took all the teams that I'll be highlighting here based on the idea that we're all teams that waited until around the 4th round to take our first quarterback in Superflex. So a lot of these feel sort of like an experiment in seeing what you can get, going heavier on other positions up top, and then how you piece things together later with the quarterback situation. Having talked with Bill, I think he also agrees that realistically he would not be going Jonathan Taylor 101. He said himself he'd probably go Josh Allen in a real draft there. And if he had the 101 and was married to the idea of going Jonathan Taylor, I think you'd be trading back from that position. Again, no trades in this draft. But yeah, I think that's how you get the value there, because someone's going to want Allen or someone's going to want Mahomes up top there. And you're better off taking a little bit of value. So I guess that might be possibly the worst if I was going to go with a worst one. But I love the Jalen Waddle pick at 3. I remember thinking that was going to finish out my trio I guess I maybe expected DK Metcalf to go sooner, and it looks like for our dad's team at 102, he'd already taken Devontae Adams. So it looked like it was flowing perfectly for Waddle to get to me. And I feel like that was the perfect spot of Bill on that bookend. When you're at the one spot, like you kind of got to do a lot of reaches and get your guys. And I love that Waddle pick there at 3. His first quarterback is Trey Lance in the 4th round. And I think what Bill started to experience is that because some of the other, more reliable or cachet quarterbacks had gone off, he more opted to kind of take like a massive quarterback. So within the next like 5 rounds, he took 3 quarterbacks with Lance, Tagovailoa, and Wilson. So kind of bringing in like a lot of shots at that quarterback position. And when you start doing that, you kind of have to push down the tight end. Obviously, it wasn't until the 13th round that he grabbed his first tight end with Rob Gronkowski. With Brady being
retire.
out of the league. Yeah, no, it's the thing. He's only going to be playing with Brady. So besides that, Jonnu Smith and Tanyan late double up, kind of hurting at that. It's Superflex tight end premium. So that's probably a more unfortunate situation than you would want. But otherwise, I kind of love what Bill pulled together at wide receiver and running back. And I think he's got a lot of shots at quarterback. So I'd say I think he pulled together a pretty nice team, all things considered, and just a little weak at tight end.
So I just want to dive into this question because we did have the 1501 was LaVisca Chanel. Andrew asks, can we dive into Visca a bit? I'm starting to get a little itchy. Hard to imagine a world where he's carving out a primary role for a team that looks to bring in a boundary X. Yeah, I mean, LaVisca's lost a lot of shine, obviously, over the last few years. I don't know where you guys fall on him, but like after watching him this past year, like I'm just kind of inclined to think that he's just not that good. Personally,
he's not the next Debo.
He's not the next Debo. Yeah. Like, I do think you can get more out of him to be useful in an offense, but like clearly he's not an outside receiver. Like, he should be running out of the X. And it feels like those kind of criticisms that he's a gadget guy seem to be correct. So can he be valuable for an offense run by Doug Peterson doing kind of the gadgety manufactured things? Sure, but fantasy-wise, I just don't see it happening for him at this point.
It's tough to try. He fell really pretty far from where you would see him go, particularly in redraft last year. He's fallen real far, 15th round here. That is not where he was going last year. So his value is definitely corrected. It's just at this point, it's can you stomach picking him that late, and you're hoping the upside's there that he can do something for you. But I was never the biggest fan, so I feel like he's gone down the path where I kind of more expected. He's going to be a late pick. He's going to go around this territory in most drafts. So.
Well, even then, it's just tough because I feel like he's playing out as exactly what we feared he might be. You know, when you mentioned the gadget and kind of relying on those manufactured touches and all the stuff that we heard when he was coming out and that kind of coming to fruition, even at 15, it feels a little rough because you look at some of the players that went after him. I might be more inclined to go for, a Josh Palmer who showed some promise, or like the mystery box and like the Nico Collins, like some of these other like guys, I just feel like there's more upside to them. I'm not saying they'll Nico, necessarily be better.
I roll the dice on that.
I feel like those guys still have some mystery to them. And I feel like I'd rather grab them around this mid to late round rather than
and Peterson's teams, to think about it, weren't super strong wide receiver like fantasy wise. They spread it a lot. I'm just thinking back.
Well, it was Zach Ertz, who is a free agent, by the way. Zach Ertz.
It was very tight end heavy, and then you get like a decent Alshon Jeffrey or a couple, but like not like.
I don't want to read too much into that because like personnel dictates for him, and a lot of times, and if you don't have the guys that can dominate,
do you have the guys on this team?
No, but I don't think don't think the skill positions that you see now on that team, I think there's going to be a lot of roster churn.
Well, yes,
there. I think it's going to look very different.
Wide receiver for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely drafting. I think they bring in try to bring in some guys in free agency. There's definitely some guys on the market right now, and they have the third most cap space. Like, I don't think that's a terrible landing spot for. Like, I think they should back up the Brinks truck to Chris Godwin and try to bring him in there.
Allen Robinson,
if he
welcome home.
Honestly, I think that would be a great grab. I think get a guy like Allen Robinson, particularly if you can't re-sign DJ Chark or if you don't franchise jag DJ Chark. I think Allen Robinson would be great to try to go out.
Jay, that's where you should have sang some Chris Daughtry. Give a little "I'm coming home."
Yeah.
No, you don't need that. Let's move to our next team. Jay, we've got you with this is the team named Love Tractor 3.
This is Courtney. She going for 2. We had a bunch of going for 2 people in this that helped us out with this mock draft. So thanks to all of them. She kicked it off with Justin Herbert in the first round at the 105.
Best pick of the draft. We don't need to go any further. You won the draft.
All right, next team.
Alvin Kamara round 2. Obviously, we just had the Alvin Kamara news come out about the altercation at a nightclub. Still details coming out about that, but some charges there. That's a messy situation. This was obviously done before that, but Kamara goes at the 208. Stephon Diggs 3-5. I'll run through these picks pretty quick here. Cam Akers in the 4th round. Elijah Moore after that. She took the 10. Let me go back to my notes here. 103. So real nice draft capital there in the 2022 draft in the 6th round with the 103. Dallas Goedert, first tight end there in the 7th round. Leonard Fournette, Jameis Winston. And then another pick being the 112 in the 10th round, Irv Smith Jr., Michael Gallup, another pick being the 2-7 back in the 13th round. And then to round out some of her late picks, Russell Gage, Brevin Jordan, Jarrett Patterson, Tyler Heineke, Robbie Anderson, Chris Evans, Traquan Smith, Kenny Wangu, and another couple of picks there mixed in. So when I looked at her team, really definitely a balanced approach. You saw basically first 3 picks, which is just a common approach, and an approach I've done before in Dynasty Startups as well. Quarterback up front, get one of the top 5 quarterbacks, particularly when you're in that top 5 range in a startup, and then went with a running back and a wide receiver back to back there. And I really like Diggs because Diggs kind of fell at a point where you're starting to get out of that top tier of wide receivers. So you're going to see, sort of from Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase through the Metcalf, Diggs, Deontay Johnson range. She sort of was able to take her top one at the back of that, which I kind of like because there's a lot of guys in the mix there that haven't necessarily established themselves as the clear-cut guy you want, like CeeDee Lamb or guys like, that might be a little bit older, like Devontae Adams and stuff like that. So getting a guy like Stephon Diggs is nice there in the 3rd when you hadn't drafted one up front. And then also another nice end of tier kind of spot with Cam Akers too. Obviously Cam Akers coming off the Achilles, but to get him as a 2nd running back in the 4th round is really nice as well to round that out. And obviously we love Elijah Moore in the 5th round. So I really like that pick too. The thing with this team, the balance sort of goes off a little with Winston's the tough one, which I think she made a comment when she took Winston. Definitely a risk reward pick there, but probably my least favorite of these picks, just because I think I would have went a little bit of a safer route. You can play around with your 2nd quarterback a little bit in Superflex, especially when you get a guy like Herbert up front, but I probably would have erred more on the side of maybe like a Derek Carr or something like that there. You got to hope Winston gets the job, and in that spot, you could probably move and get Winston later. You never know how the draft's going to go, but you probably could have maybe gotten Winston maybe a round later. But if that's your guy, go get him. That's fine. One of the most picks were taken by this team. So you got the 103, 112, 27, 32, 311. So a lot of draft capital to be able to maneuver, before that draft, if you have this team, to either trade those picks or to get some nice quality young players to go forward with. And I also liked a lot of some of the back end picks of like guys like Jarrett Patterson, Chris Evans, Jordan on the tight end on the Texans. So some guys that could step into some more roles in the future if things shake out, particularly those running backs, if injuries happen and things like that, and they can be valuable pieces year one. So overall, really balanced team. No real big weaknesses besides that quarterback spot that you might have to work on a little bit.
Yeah, I think my favorite value on this team is Leonard Fournette at 808. I know he's a free agent, but like he's in that same age range as all those other 2017 guys. I know he had a down, like he kind of that's left the Jags in disarray, but he was phenomenal this past year. Like he was terrific. Had good volume. His pass catching was solid. He's seen like getting a guy who maybe he ends up back on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, although without Tom Brady is different. His services are going to be wanted in a lot of places, and it's hard to imagine him not like being the guy or the main guy at least somewhere next year, whether that's one of these teams we've talked about with an opening spot. Now the window's open for the Atlanta Falcons to take control of that dreadful NFC South, but I do like Leonard Fournette at that value. It seems like the latest you would possibly be able to get an actual workhorse back, acknowledging the uncertainty there.
Yeah, that feels like a steal, and I'll echo that. I love that Elijah Moore pick in the 5th. Looking further at my team, if I could do it all over again and fix that, it's sort of the way my quarterbacks played out. I feel like I'd love swapping a quarterback earlier instead of DK Metcalf, grab myself a Russell Wilson, and then maybe go Elijah Moore instead of quarterback in the 5th, because I did not read that Moore might go that soon, and it just went right after my pick there, and definitely love that value for her.
And this is definitely a team that could do either compete or get young too. And it makes Leonard Fournette nice there too, because you could move him too, especially if he lands in a good spot. You might be able to trade him too.
Let's move on to our next team, which is Frere Bear, which is Paul, who's in the chat there. Make yourself known, Paul. We're going to go through your team. Going through these picks real quick. We started with Kyler Murray, went to A.J. Brown, George Kittle in the 3rd, Nick Chubb, Aaron Rodgers, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Damian Harris in the 8th round, Derek Carr, Allen Robinson, James Robinson, the Robinson brothers, Davis Mills in the 12th, Tyler Boyd, Logan Thomas. We had pick, I believe this is 204, if I'm not mistaken. 209, actually. Sorry, it was later than I thought. Then we have Kendrick Bourne, Ronald Jones, who listened to my comments last week on Ronald Jones, although this is pretty late to take Ronald Jones. D'Ernest Johnson, Quintus Cephas, the 304, Boston Scott, Denzel Mims, and Foster Moreau. So this team I would definitely categorize. Obviously, waited a while to take. Championship caliber is
this is a bad team. This is really bad.
This is a bad team. You did bad things. No, I do think it's very much
what not to do.
I think it's a very much a win now team. And I think you went strong out the gate with, Kyler Murray's obviously been great. Aaron Rodgers in the 5th round, obviously, underweighting age with, although at that point, I think that's good value though for Aaron Rodgers for the production he gives you. Like that's great value. And then I like the swings with the risk. Obviously, Calvin Ridley going in the 6th round, understanding that we don't know when or where he'll be playing again, but when he plays, he's an elite talent, and getting a guy who has finished as a top 5 fantasy wide receiver in the 6th round is pretty terrific. I also think Cooper's been kind of pretty underrated most years. I know people always try to spread the idea that Amari Cooper is overrated. Not really in the fantasy community. Everyone always underdrafts him, and he always kind of outkicks his draft capital in a way. He's always
you have
down
to have high
lower.
ADP to be overrated. I don't remember the last time I saw him as a top tier wide receiver.
I think he's overrated by color commentators in the booths, not by the actual ADP. I think my least favorite pick here, and it's only because Leonard Fournette went 3 picks later, is Damian Harris. I think the age difference is kind of negligible here, and Damian Harris has got 1 year under contract with the Patriots. Doesn't really catch passes, is really touchdown dependent. I think if you're building a win now team, I would have preferred to take Leonard Fournette there and take a swing at a top tier guy, because you did kind of forego some QB, some running back upside earlier for the sake of guys like Kittle and AJ Brown early on, who I think were the right picks there. I just personally would have taken the swing at Leonard Fournette over Damian Harris, although that pick's not going to kill you. I just think like the ceiling is way lower on that. But a few picks later, I know he's got an Achilles and the running back situation's murky. I just think James Robinson's a good running back. And if he's not necessarily valuable next year, I think he sticks somewhere. And Allen Robinson, another high risk, high reward type play in the 10th round is kind of crazy. He was a top 4 or 5 round pick easy a year ago. And the fact that you can get him in the 10th now, I like that a lot as well. Logan Thomas, I think, is another high risk, high reward pick, a guy who's been injured the past year. And, you're getting after guys who, like last year, I would have taken him above. Like, I would have taken him above Irv Smith and Zach Ertz and Rob Gronkowski. Well, certainly Rob Gronkowski now. So I do like that pick. This team obviously could, like, things could go very wrong with this team if some of these risks don't pan out, but you got you got players you can trade and bail out here. But I think overall, this is a good win now team, and you've got some QB capital to trade as well, because there are some QB needy teams here as well. Any other thoughts on this team, guys?
And definitely the strongest team quarterback wise, so I really like that. Just for potential, Mills is obviously a flyer. He obviously performed so well last year, surprisingly. Does he start? Does he not start? We're not sure. It might help that Lovie Smith ended up the coach just because he was in the system already. So it's like, it's not an outsider coming in and going like, I want a different guy. You got someone who is at least there, but he's such a wild card, but that's your 4th guy. He's probably movable if he starts potentially, or Carr is. So definitely stack there. And that, Superflex, that is a good position to be in if you're a strong quarterback.
Yeah, no, it feels like a very solid team all around, and very, very balanced approach too. It looks like the only time there was a position double up was Ridley Cooper there towards the beginning, but like otherwise, I feel like it's something that you have more ability to kind of go into this balanced approach when you have more of a like mid or draft order type pick, like that you can kind of take things in stride like that. Where I feel like the closer you get to the ends, the more it might be advantageous to start blocking together positions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's move to our next team. And this is Andrew, you're going to take us through. This is Team Quinifer at pick 111 here.
Yes, Quinifer. Very much like I did, started off with 3 wide receivers in a row. We go Deebo Samuel at the 111, and Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, TJ Hawkinson, a 4th wide receiver with Michael Pittman at the 5th pick. Then Devin Singletary, then first draft pick off the board, grabs the 106. Then Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, back-to-back quarterbacks. Then goes Ramondre Stevenson, Chase Edmonds, back-to-back running backs. Another pick with the 201. Okay, yeah, the 201. Then Jimmy Garoppolo, Terrace Marshall, Mecole Hardman, Sam Darnold, Brian Edwards, Zach Moss, Donald Parham, Harrison Bryant, Raheem Mostert. I don't think I know his Hilliard.
Dontrell Hilliard.
That's Dontrell Hilliard. I forgot his first name. And then is that Antonio Brown at the end?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Fallen pretty far. Okay, so
this was post him quitting on the field.
So their last pick was Dontrell Hilliard. But yeah, going back up to the top, like I said, I really like this approach of going real heavy on wide receiver. And I'd be hard pressed to say which one of us got the better 3-player stack here, because Debo and Cup together, based on this year's performance and how they project to be in the future, that is very strong. And then to pair that with T. Higgins, who, despite Jamar Chase stepping onto the scene, was still very, very good in another highly touted young wide receiver. That is a very strong grouping. And I think maybe where it falls off for me a little bit is when we end up on Devin Singletary there around the 5th round. And also, I don't know that I'm as high on Michael Pittman, but I see someone going for him. But I think Devin Singletary made more of a case for himself towards the latter stretch of the season and into the playoffs, started to become very productive. But I'm still not so sure that team sort of sticks with it. I feel like the Bills still could be a good running back landing spot in the draft. So I like Devin Singletary. I just don't know how I feel about him being my RB1. But otherwise, they still pulled together Tannehill and Wentz as the quarterbacks. So we're able to get some guys that maybe are on the lower end, but still have the upside to perform for you on your team. And the Hawkinson pick, I think, is great up top, getting yourself a strong tight end. I think they just maybe missed out a little bit on running back in this. So, and that's sort of the risk you take when you go really heavy up top in one position. I think otherwise it feels pretty good, but I don't know if you guys would have done the same if you agree with that.
Yeah, I
think I might have erred towards maybe some different running backs, like a Michael Carter.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Singletary guy. That was my but I understand why people are into him. I'm just one more year on his contract. He doesn't necessarily catch a ton of balls.
He's also not a bigger guy, so he doesn't profile as, hey, he's doing good. Let's step him into that work.
So I would move him. That's a guy I'd be because it's just because of the performance that you had. That was one of my I would sell. If I had him on a team, I don't, but I would sell him because I just think you could get something at this point for him, and I think this is the high point of his value. So he'd be a sell for me. So that's what you could maybe do with this team, but I don't I mean, in a 0-ish RB scenario, fine, but I don't know. I think I might have went with more of the CEH's, Carter's.
Yeah.
And then look for Fournette later.
You do have that 106 pick there, which you should be able to get one of the running backs.
Kenneth Walker could fall to 6, or Spiller, or maybe depending on
that 6-7 spot, 5, 6, 7 rookie pick feels like a very good spot to be able to get. At least at worst, the number 2 at one of those positions. 2 quarterbacks go, 2 running backs go, 2 wide receivers. You're going to be able to grab one of those guys, or you might be able to package up and trade up if you want to go get that running back that maybe you missed out on in this draft. But yeah, I think I sort of echo what you were getting at, that also in a more 0 RB attempt, I might have gone even heavier on running back down the back half of the draft, and just
true, yeah. Not getting guys like Marshall and Hardman there.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, why not take the Sony Michels and stuff who are on the board, who might just kind of pad that and give you a few more lottery tickets.
I think they might be able to patch together running back. I think the pick where the pick that I think would probably be my least favorite here would probably be Carson Wentz at the 9-11. I just worry about his stability there, and I'm looking at options later. I think I would have gone with Mayfield over him. Would have maybe Garoppolo.
A whole lot after
not that. It's not a whole lot after him. I think Mayfield was probably.
It gets gross. Quarterback's so gross. It's just not good right now.
Yeah,
it's
Daniel Jones probably looks better now with the hire of Dayball.
It's still risky. He got 1 year with him, and he's got a make or break kind of. So it's I know, but Carson Wentz might be 1 year make or break too, or be a guy that they move on from. Who knows? But
Yeah, and Tannehill's a pretty stabilizing factor there, although it's not quite the high level like when you pick like Justin Herbert, like for Courtney back on her.
And I like these tight ends in the back half. Parham and Bryant are two of my favorites.
Yeah, that's good. And I love getting like you can't argue with the top 4 picks in terms of like that's.
Those are
those are very
slam dunks up front. Yeah.
The one thing I will say about like the going wide receiver early and getting that value, I don't have a problem with in terms of like the player's value of what they can score for your team. But when if you did have to like blow up, I'm almost like more inclined to like, I feel like this would be bad team construction in terms of if you're trying to win, but like I'd almost want to like next time we do a mock, go back to back QBs, just because those have most trade value in Superflex, and see what that nets you in sort of a team and how that can play out.
There are people who definitely subscribe to as many quarterbacks up front as you can get. Yeah. So that's definitely viable. And
I don't know if you can go wrong. I mean, unless they just bust out.
In this landscape, it's not terrible because it's so bad at a certain point.
Yeah, there's a lot of turmoil at quarterback because of the retirements.
You should probably either embrace the turmoil or just really stock up. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can't argue with drafting just pure value in knowing that that takes knowing your league like it. You're getting into a league where there's active players that you will be able to trade. Because sometimes
this is a conversation for another mock draft. We got to move on to our next team, which
I know we're up against.
To Jay, we're going to
we're gonna have to
team
do these
going
fast.
for 2. Yeah,
I'm gonna fly through this one, but I had team going for 2. He's picking out the 110. Goes Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb stack up front, Antonio Gibson in the 3rd round, Elijah Mitchell in the 4th, and everybody's favorite Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 5th. He's our 101 winner. He picked the 101 in the 6th round. Kirk Cousins in the 7th. Dawson Knox in the 8th. Then Gabe Davis, playoff hero. 10th round, he had another pick here. That is the 111. Follows that up with OBJ in the 11th round. Cole Kmet, and then the 2-7. Tyler Huntley. Donovan the Peoples Jones, Jarvis Landry, Nick Westbrook Akine, Jalen Guyton, and then goes running back crazy at the end. Jamar Jefferson, Marlon Mack, Eno Benjamin, Jeff Wilson, and Jerick McKinnon. And this team was another team that I was pretty well balanced, as you see at the top. They're going back and forth with through the positions. Gets a top quarterback with Dak Prescott, stacks that with CeeDee Lamb, and then focuses on the running back position after that. So I like some of these top end picks here. Jeff's a noted 49ers fan. So he got his guy Elijah Mitchell in the 4th there. I like Elijah Mitchell, so I'm actually a pro Elijah Mitchell here. A little early for me over guys like Nick Chubb, Barkley, and Akers and Dobbins. So it's probably my least favorite pick here because I feel like that's a prime spot to trade if you're targeting Elijah Mitchell, who I think is a value, but like probably not at this spot. Just because I do think he is the guy for that team next year. And he's one of the most interesting guys in a draft just because he's polarizing because people are going to have different views on him. So you might be able to get him at a point that makes a little bit more sense, a little bit more value. So if you think you can get him later to be your RB2, move back, gain yourself some value, and you could get Elijah Mitchell there. We obviously didn't have trades here, so you couldn't do that. So that was the one where I would have probably been looking for other things. I really like the 101 as another good pick because he actually popped popped the cherry of the draft picks here in the 6th round.
Yeah,
which
round
last
6 to
year
8,
we did a draft and the 101 went in the 1st round. Obviously, way different drafts, but 6th round. I think it was a game of chicken in this mock draft. That's what it felt like, where it was like, I don't want to be the first person to take a draft pick. So when you eventually get it in the 6th round, I really like that spot. You have a lot of play with that. That's very flexible because you could go quarterback, you could go running back, or wide receiver there. Wide receiver might be the best position group in this draft, but there's value at the other position. So I really like that. Some of the later picks, just to go through some quick that I liked. I like Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously in the 11th. That's nice just because he's showing out pretty well right now. Gabe Davis, obviously,
that was my favorite
is
pick
intriguing in the
OBJ.
9th. So those two are interesting. Yeah, OBJ there. And I love Cole Kmet too. I like that in the 12th round because I think he is a nice guy to pair with Knox there with a little bit of upside with another guy who established himself last year, but still risk in Dawson Knox, a guy who doesn't get a lot of target share. So having a Cole Kmet a couple rounds later, I like that pair as, you should be able to get something out of that. So
I do want to say just one thing where you see a lot of target share arguments going around. I think sometimes it's not that it's not a useful stack, but I do think sometimes we're bad at understanding absolute versus relative value in the fantasy community with stats rather. Jesus Christ, Josh.
Let's just go back to
13% target share on a high volume offense is better than if you look at raw absolute value. Dawson Knox's totals of targets as he went through on that team when he was injured, obviously, for a little bit, is better than other tight ends with higher target shares on worse teams. So I'm not as worried about his target share because I have seen the production. Yes. I do know the raw production value. So keep in mind relative value.
He just throws up zeros here and there, which sucks. I can't get over that. It was in the championship round.
Yes. Thanks, Eric. I understand stacks very well.
We all know stacks. Yeah, stacks are good.
I can't speak. I'm losing my mind. Let's move on to our next team, though, which is going to be more of me speaking. This is going on to Team Foosman, which is Mike. I think he's also still in the chat here. Make yourself known, Mike, as we go through your team. So we've got Joe Burr, Kyle Pitts, Russell Wilson, Chris Godwin in the 4th, Josh Jacobs, Adam Vinatieri, which is a pick, which I believe was the 102.
No, it was Adam Vinatieri.
Adam Vinatieri. He had the 102 Ezekiel Elliott, the 108 AJ Dillon, Tyler Lockett, Alexander Madison, the 203 Chuba Hubbard, Sony Michel, Nico Collins, and the 210. And then we have Deonta Foreman, Evan Ingram, Mitchell Trubisky, Curtis Samuel, Kenyon Drake, some pick, which I believe is probably the 307 or something like that, or the 304 or 5, somewhere in that range, and then Austin Hooper to round it out. So this is definitely a young team, or at least a wide window type team. Obviously, Russell Wilson's not young, but I don't think anyone thinks Russell Wilson has less than another 5 years at least to play. So super young, which I do like that strategy. Got a lot of draft capital in there, a lot of flexibility there. I would say this is probably not a win now team. I think you just get thin after the top few players right now, sans what those draft picks are going to be, but I think that's pretty much by design. I think this is a team that's trying to build towards the future. I think the Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson stack is super stabilizing. And obviously I love Kyle Pitts. That's an awesome player to have as your value there. Although I do have to say, getting Mark Andrews, Jay, your team at the 307, I'm really surprised that I think Kyle Pitts that's where you should be taking Kyle Pitts in a draft, early second round. I'd be fine with Kyle Pitts at the end of the first round, but Mark Andrews and George Kittle and Hawkinson going that much later was strange to me. I thought that there would be, particularly Andrews, would have gone right after that.
Partially your fault, Josh, because you passed on Andrews. So.
It is my fault. I made a mistake there. I should have taken Mark Andrews. Yeah. Yeah.
Both
no, actually, I do.
What do you have to say for yourself?
I do kind of really regret that, not taking Mark Andrews at my turn there. My least favorite pick in this draft would have been Ezekiel Elliott, just because it's not keeping with the strategy of the team. I don't think it's bad value necessarily for Ezekiel Elliott, but in terms of roster construction, I think he probably got 1 year tops with Ezekiel Elliott after this, where he could be decent value. I don't know, players move around, but I don't love that.
Fell pretty far though. Zeke really, I got 7th round.
See, that's where I agree that it does not follow with the roster construction, but I also think that with the versatility of having the picks and being able to shift immediately playing for the future with a team like this, having like liquid assets like running backs and being able to see if you figure that, I don't know, if is Elliott's looking good or Jacobs, these are guys he can sell off.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the Jacobs pick there is perfectly good because I think
I
he's
love
young.
Jacobs pick. Yeah.
Jacobs pick
younger.
in the 5th. I think that fits with his team. I mean, with Ezekiel, like, with keeping young, I mean, what are we at here for picks? It would have been a pretty high pick. It would have been the 206. You could have taken another pick here. You could have taken, I mean, I like a guy like Ayuk or Bateman around this pick. It's not a bad pick. I just think it's out of character with this team and how you're constructing it. I personally wouldn't have made the Elliott pick there. But it's not bad value by any means. If for in a vacuum for Elliott, my favorite pick on this team, Chris Godwin in the 4th. Chris Godwin I know he's possibly ending up on another team next year. And he's going to be coming off of an injury, but like, he's so good. He's so friggin' good. And I think like if he was healthy, and we knew what team he was on, I think he's easily in the top 2 rounds. Like, I think he's right in that tier with Metcalf and Diggs and Deontay Johnson, all things being equal. So I love Chris Godwin in the 4th round for this team. Any other thoughts, guys?
Only wide receiver taken in the 4th round. Unbelievable.
Weird.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only one.
Weird, wild stuff. Shall we move? Shall we move to our next team? This is team Shane B. Is that what he's labeled as? That's of course FF Shane B. That's of course our
Shane Barrett,
founder of the Fantasy Football Collective. We're one of the founders of the Fantasy Football Collective. So, Andrew, you're going to be taking us through Shane's team at the 112.
At the 112 on that first bookend, doubling up with Najee Harris and DeAndre Swift. Immediately strong running back core right there. And then goes Trevor Lawrence, Joe Mixon. So I guess despite what I said earlier, technically got that quarterback in the 3rd round, didn't wait until the 4th, but the bookend, it's close enough. So Trevor Lawrence at 3, Joe Mixon at 4. Then doubles up on tight ends with Waller and Freiermuth. Takes his first pick and only pick, the 107 in the next round. Then goes bunch of wide receivers with Darnell Mooney, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Brandon Cooks. Then we got Baker Mayfield, James Conner, Matt Ryan, Jacoby Myers, Jamal Williams, Alan Lazard, Tommy Tremble, Tyler Johnson, Paris Campbell, Justin Jackson, DJ Dallas, Kylan Hill, and I thought AJ...
Our favorite, Seth Williams.
I thought Antonio Brown was the worst, most throwaway pick at the end, but I think Seth Williams takes the cake there as... was that Mr. Irrelevant?
Yeah,
that was Mr. Irrelevant. I didn't know you could take practice squad.
Yeah, I didn't think his sleeper knew who he was.
Yeah, I didn't. That was a write-in.
Creative player.
It actually says Seth Williams, Auburn.
It's a Devi team.
But yeah, so definitely running back heavy here at the top. And yeah, I love that pairing of Harris and Swift. And then Joe Mixon, I think it takes the cake as being probably the strongest running back core there. Obviously, Jay, you're pretty close there with McCaffrey and Barkley if they both kind of return to form. But he's got 3, so...
hey, I have Henry Cook and Cordarrelle Patterson. Come on.
See, yeah. Those first 2 were sounding so good.
Think about it.
Patterson, not to go off, but that's a very interesting. Like, what do we think he does for the future, and does Atlanta continue to work through him
next week on the show?
Yeah, we'll get into that more. But yeah, so I think, again, I like a lot of what Shane's doing here. Strong running back core. He gets Trevor Lawrence in the mix of that. So he's got his young quarterback, doubles that up with Baker Mayfield, 6 rounds later, and then further secures that with Matt Ryan. So strong quarterbacks, strong running backs, the double up of Waller and Freiermuth, tight end premium, as we've repeated a few times. That's a great doubling up there. I think that, as usual, as all the other things are hitting strong, the weakness kind of comes around with the wide receiver. Waiting until the later rounds to go there. Your wide receiver one's Darnell Mooney, and I think we all kind of agree that we like Mooney, but I wouldn't be feeling that strong about him being the number one. So you're probably hoping that you hit pretty strong at wide receiver with that 107. The kind of lack of like a strong player there, or like unless a Juju Smith-Schuster just comes back and starts performing like he did years ago, I think you're going to be putting some work into building this wide receiver core. So part of me feels like I would have rather grabbed maybe one of the wide receivers that would have been around during that 107. I feel like you could have like grabbed someone like a Cooper or D-Hop at that point, and maybe giving yourself a little bit more on top of that wide receiver core. But otherwise, I think this is a pretty solid team with a lot of strong talent at all the other positions.
Shane, just to comment quick, does one of my favorite things a couple times in this, when you have a bookend, is to double up on a position.
Which I alluded to earlier, that it's a very good move on the bookend to just start.
Like it like sort of like sets a trend, or it like immediately like you establish like turf in a position, which I like, because it's like, all right, people might be strong here, but I'm going to be stout at running back. So he obviously has that running back core, or the tight end core. He was able to do it a couple times here that I really liked.
Yeah, especially if the running backs up top, because we had Taylor go, and then no one went until Najee again at the bookend, so he just doubled up there. So I think that was a good like zig while everyone's zagging type thing.
Yeah, I feel like he does that multiple times, and because you're on those bookends, you don't really have the chance to like pace yourself and kind of take that more mixed approach. So the power you do have, like you were saying, is to kind of set that trend. And maybe you take 2 running backs there and you start a bit of a run. You say Taylor was the only one to go in the first round until he took Najee at the end. Goes Najee, Swift, then 4 running backs go that round. So it kind of does like spur that momentum sometimes when you can kind of push things along on the bookend.
Let's finish out our teams, Jay, with our last one at Fantasy Nav.
Yeah, and that's Eric. He's in the chat. He's our snacks guy. He understands snacks very well. This is his team here. And he had the 6. And let's go through his picks here. He had Jamar Chase up front in the first round, 1-6. Jalen Hurts in the second. Deontay Johnson in the third. Travis Kelce. David Montgomery. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Jerry Jeudy in the 7th. Rashad Bateman in the 8th, Tony Pollard in the 9th, Miles Sanders in the 10th, Kadarius Toney in the 11th. He took his only pick in the 12th round here. This was the 2-5. And then has quarterbacks Jordan Love and Taysom Hill towards the back end here. Also grabs a couple of wide receivers in the back half of the draft here. Van Jefferson in the 14th, Marquez Callaway in the 16th, Keyshawn Vaughn. He goes running back there in the 17th, and then has at the back end of the draft here Adam Troutman, De'Ami Brown, D. Eskridge, Anthony Schwartz, Trey McKitty, and then Tony Jones at the very last round there. So this is another interesting build here in terms of it's balanced, but he did wait on running back, so we don't take our first running back till the 5th round here. Goes very, very strong at wide receiver up front, which I really like. Jamar Chase, I was gonna take him actually at the 7 here. That was my plan. I was like, on this mock, I'm gonna take Jamar Chase.
You missed out on Chase and Jefferson.
Mix it up. I got sniped a few times in this mock. It wasn't fun, but he takes Jamar Chase there, so I obviously love that. And then pairs him with another one of my favorites, Deontay Johnson in the 3rd. So I just think that's a great build to a wide receiver core there, and then gets away from it from a little bit, which is usually a good strategy. Is if you go strong in an area, and there's different names I've heard for it, either anchor or hero. RB or wide receiver, things like that. But I do like that where you establish a base and then you can kind of explore the other positions and then come back. So he does that a little bit here where he gets Kelsey, which you have to worry about a little bit just because of his age. So I think I might attack that position earlier or later from the tight end perspective, just from maybe getting some more young guys. He gets Troutman late, which I like because I like Troutman, and Troutman kind of fell here. Trey McKitty's interesting, but that's real late. I might have tried to grab some of the other young ones in the mix there, like an Irv Smith or even a Brevin Jordan, Cole Kmet, things like that. But obviously Travis Kelce, as long as he's playing, is probably going to be pretty good for you. So you're going to have that.
And he's a tradable asset.
Definitely tradable, so that's good as well. Really like the value you get at running back when you wait a tiny bit to stack up the 4 people that he did, like Montgomery, Hilaire, Pollard, and Sanders. Polarizing guys. A lot of defenders for these guys, but then a lot of detractors for probably each one of these both, a lot of, both sides of these guys. But as a core, I think you're going to get something out of these. Particularly Sanders was one of my more favorite ones because he really fell in this to the 10th round. So I like that they're just from there could be a recovery for Miles Sanders, so I don't mind that. And around that, I like Kadarius Toney. I like Marquez Callaway later as kind of a de facto one on that team, Van Jefferson, and some of the guys he got late. Just a little dicey at quarterback here. That would be my only worry with this team, is Jalen Hurts in the second. I like Jalen Hurts for fantasy. It's just how long is he the starter? Is that in jeopardy at any point in the future just from the if the accuracy issues don't rectify themselves at any point, does that go away? So if he's not a starter anymore, that's going to hurt you. And then there's really just not a stable other quarterback here in Superflex. Jordan Love is a real risk reward. Not a bad spot for him. I probably would have looked for something earlier, but Jordan Love could be the starter in Green Bay next year. He'll be an interesting guy here as we look at Rodgers. And then Taysom Hill could be the starter this year too.
I think that's probably your best bet at Taysom Hill, just because of the cap situation for the Saints.
Maybe
they're not going to be able to afford Jameis Winston. Jameis is going to get paid somewhere. Taysom is a good fantasy asset, and they might be just like. I don't think it's long-term at all, but like the Saints might not have another option. Like they might not be able to afford another option. They're negative $70 million or something like that on the cap. It's something ridiculous. So Taysom Hill might be their option. Like I think they might be going for Tankapalooza with the Saints there. So I think probably your best bet for this team is if you're not immediately competing, you take a guy like Taysom Hill and sell him for
move
value.
Him if he plays because a contender. Year, if Taysom Hill's playing, the rushing value is high, so he does have trade value. He did go crazy. Eric said in the chat he went crazy. I didn't even realize how many Saints he had here at the end. It was Taysom Hill, Callaway, Troutman, and Tony Jones at the end.
Oh, jeez.
We all know that the Saints are where it's at.
All in on the ascendant Saints offense.
Although Troutman probably had. I do like Callaway's Troutman. A value play. Troutman's nice there though because there is a lot of upside in Troutman just because he had some injury things. He's really young. Tight ends just don't break out right away.
Can I just say we didn't talk about it at the beginning. I hate the Dennis Allen hire. I hate that hire so much.
I don't like that. That's my least favorite hire out of all those. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Note that we did not talk very much about him, so the silence was
it's like a retread that you weren't really like you were lukewarm on the first time around. It's like not great. Right?
No, absolutely not.
Like the retreads where it's like, well, that guy was successful before, and like maybe he can do it again. That makes sense. But when it's like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know about that guy, but we'll see. But yeah, overall, those are my thoughts there. I really like up front, obviously Chase Johnson. And then we'll be talking about the Broncos a lot, I'm sure, because they're just going to swirl in quarterback rumors. But like those were interesting picks here, just to highlight where they went. Jerry Jeudy in the 7th, and then Sutton in the 11th, and then Tim Patrick in the 20th. I think I'm more comfortable with the guys that fall farther. I guess I like Jeudy. But man, Patrick, that's the steal probably in the 20th. The guy who signed to the team from, he got a contract extension, and
he did.
He's going in the 20th round. That's probably where I'd look for value there. But that's just a tough situation to parse, just because there's talent probably more baked into Judy and Sutton. They're the higher profile guys, but just a really weird situation just from the quarterback perspective. And then, how that'll shake out. Does someone move on from that team at some point? A Judy or a Sutton, do they end up on another team? We'll have to wait and see. But quarterback's the first thing that needs to shake out in Denver to really figure out that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up this episode.
We made it.
We did. We made it. We made it all the way through. Before we go, though, we should get some Super Bowl picks as we go through. As we go into this weekend, Jay.
Oh, Super Bowl. I thought this mock draft was the Super Bowl.
This really is the Super Bowl.
I think I won.
Easy to confuse, Jay. Easy to confuse.
I have the Rams over the Bengals, 30-20. There's my score.
Andrew?
Am I winning?
Yeah, I've got Rams over the Bengals. Give me 27-20.
And I also have the Rams. I'm going 24-13 Rams over Bengals. That is it for this episode of the Brothers of Dynasty. I am Josh. You can find me at DFFJChris on Twitter. Remember to follow us also at Bros of Dynasty on Twitter, and subscribe to our Facebook page, Brothers of Dynasty, and this YouTube page right now. When you're listening, smash that subscribe button.
Man, you're already here.
Dynasty. You're already here. You might as well do it. Don't miss our show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check us out. We'll be here all off season, taking you through breaking down this rookie class. And as always, thank you to my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Josh. You can find me on Twitter at JC_DFF. You can find my work at goingfor2.com. A little bit of writing there, some collaboration articles, fantasy cheat sheet podcast over on that network. And next week we're gonna start the rookies. I think the plan, we're gonna do our early draft. Everybody's doing it. We're gonna do our early 2022 rookie mock.
Yeah,
1 or 2 rounds. As far as we can go with guys that we know.
We're gonna figure it out.
Throwing names out.
Get maybe 15 picks,
18 senior bowl deep picks.
Yeah,
let's do Christian Watson,
number
Christian
1.
Watson, yeah.
Abram Smith, Andrew. Thank you for being here.
Tolbert. Thanks, Josh. You can find me at Drusi_music on Instagram and Twitter. And you can find music stuff for my band Ghosts in the Snow. We provide the music up top. You can find that on Instagram and Facebook, and through all the streaming sites like Spotify, Apple Music, and Bandcamp. That's all linked through ghostinthesnow.com. And I don't know, if we're doing rookies next week, aren't we getting a draft from this mock? We've got all the rookie picks, so why don't we just go right to the mock rookie draft with the picks that we took?
Nope.
No?
Too hard.
I don't want to do that.
Too much.
Get everybody back together.
All right, that's it. That's the place to end it. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye.